I'm Danica Lorer, and this is Lit Happens, your celebration of the literary arts here in Saskatchewan. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome our guest, Marion Mutala. Marion is no stranger to the show. Welcome back, Marion.
Well, Diakiu, thank you for having me. And I like to say Slava Ukraini and prayers for peace in Ukraine at this time, for sure.
And I see that you're wearing blue and yellow today, as so many of us are these days. So, Marion, you come on often, you talk about poetry and you talk about children's books. And I think today we're here to talk about your poetry book, Race to the Finish. Does that sound
That's
right?
Yes, exactly.
So, Race to the Finish is an interesting title. It's, it can bring so many different images to mind. Tell me a little bit about this project.
Well, I wrote this during COVID, and here's a picture of the cover. And I worked with Kevin Pius, Indigenous artist in Saskatoon, and he did a painting in 2019, and it stands at the University of Alberta, and it's about reconciliation. So it's the picture on my book, and I'll just read what it says in the back. Race to finish. What does it mean? A play on words. If humans do not stop racism, systemic racism, white privilege, and killing innocent Black and Indigenous people, it'll be the end of humanity. We will destroy each other. Will the human race make it to the finish line? So that's the premise behind the book. And I wrote this during COVID and with the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter and Indigenous movements, and missing and murdered Indigenous women. So the poems stem from that.
So we usually talk a little bit about them first, but would you like to read a poem for us right now?
Sure. And this one's called Stand Up, and it's very important because this is what we need to do today. Stand up. Stand up and be counted. People, stand up. Be counted for peace. Stand up and be counted again and again. If you are against war, willing to work for peace, willing to find alternatives to resolving conflict peacefully, stand up. Be counted today. For future generations. For expectant mothers who say, I don't want my son or daughter to die. I raise them to live, to love, to dream, and to fly high. So stand up, I say, stand up right now for peace.
Thank you, Marion. It's I know that you wrote this a couple of months ago or a few months ago, but it's so timely in all of those aspects that you were talking about in the introduction there. It's a tough time to write. How is your writing process these days?
Well, it's been very therapeutic, with everything happening in the world. A lot of people might do arts or they might sing or do painting, but I write and I find it very therapeutic. So I actually finished this book during COVID, and I also wrote another one. I did my mom's cookbook, Baba Sophie's Ukrainian cookbook, which I have here too, which I'll just show you that came out. So I actually did 2 books during COVID and under my publishing company, Millennium Marketing. And this actually is a picture of my mom, Sophie Dubeck, who came from Hafford, Saskatchewan, and me as a little girl. So it's in celebration, and it's all her recipes I put into a cookbook. So we have to celebrate all the good things in life too.
I guess that's a really important thing to think about right now. We have, and it's really lovely to see because the poetry book seems to be more heavy, and then when we have a cookbook, there's that joy and sharing and hospitality and all of those really positive things. It's so delightful to know that's a picture of you and your mother. And I think I know the artist. So just tell us who did that lovely piece of artwork.
Yeah, Wendy Siemens, who did my first 2 books, my Baba's Babushka Magical Ukrainian Christmas book and Baba's Babushka Magical Ukrainian Easter book, did the illustrations. She was an art teacher at St. Joseph's School, and now she's retired. But she did the beautiful illustrations. And again, I'll show it. It's so beautiful. And it's actually very accurate. She did pictures that I sent her, and it looks like my mom and me.
I've seen her portraits of humans and of animals before, and she does such a wonderful job.
She does.
Now, do you have a favorite recipe in that book that you could just tell us about? You don't have to tell us the whole thing, but is there something that you thought this this is something that I have to make sure I put into a cookbook if I ever do a cookbook?
Well, I couldn't put all her recipes in there, but my mom liked to cook. She loved to cook. And actually, I'll just read a little bit on the back because it's kind of magical. What mom would always say, she'd say, "Yeast day, yeast day, yeast day," which means eat, eat, eat. And the next time she'd say, "Don't eat too much, you get fat." And so in this book, it has her fluffy buff buttermilk pancakes, which are so good. And she made them on Sunday for us. Homemade bread, donuts, chocolate cake with caramel icing, which was so good. Cabbage rolls, or the number one favorite food in Canada, pierogies or put-a-hair or vareniki. So it's only fitting that Sophie loved to cook and I love to eat. And who doesn't love to eat great, nutritious, homemade food? And mom was a great cook. She had 2 deep freezes. And when she lived in Saskatoon, and we'd come to her place, and she said, "Okay, take some of this food because I have no room in my deep freeze." And so then we take the food, we come back, and they'd be full again. So those are her magic deep freezes.
That's such a lovely memory. My grandmother had the deep freeze that was mostly for garden vegetables, and then she had the one that was filled with baking and bread and soup, frozen
Mhm.
soups. So what a wonderful memory to have that abundance and that joy in sharing. And I think when we can remember people by those wonderful tastes and the smells of the kitchen, that we have such a rich memory to share. So I want to go back to the poetry book again and just think a little bit about some of the reasons why you wanted to dig into such heavy topics.
Well, if you look at what was happening in the world, and this is Anti-Racism Month, it's very important that we speak up against in any injustices we see in the world. And there's so many things that are happening, discrimination and different kinds of racism acts, and we need to speak up for those, and to find our voice and be the voice for change, and that is so important. And so it is a heavy topic, but it's an important topic, and I think that we need, as people, as human beings, to try and make a difference for the world.
And I think there's something lovely about what writers can do in just helping to tell the stories and to give space for voices of those who don't always have that place. But when we can stand up and at least even the stand up poem that you wrote that you read to us, it really reminds us how no matter where we are, our voices is really important in this world at this time.
It is so important. If we think of journalism or any stories that people are telling, or artists through their music or paintings, whatever, we need to send our messages and stand up. So I'm telling all people to stand up for peace now and to speak up. And the world is with Ukraine today, and it's so important. And even the Russians are wanting peace, So I think the majority of people want peace in the world. And I think this is the time we really need to put our message strong and stand up.
Marion, thank you so much for talking with me today. It's always such a delight, and I'm always so interested to hear about your new projects. That's about all the time we have, but I want to just finish up by saying I wish you peace today as well.
Okay, thank you, Diaku, and same to you, and peace to the world.
And as we said at the beginning, this is Lit Happens. You can find past episodes on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram, or you can contact me by email at danicalorer.gmail.com. Thanks for watching.